All right, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for a discussion of the night. And Professor Fred Ogola is joining us live via Zoom. We're talking about the state of the nation with Prof. And Prof, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, I would just want us to go straight to the point because we want to let you go. We understand you're supposed to be somewhere else. So I want to get your opinion. As a government expert, what's your assessment on the recent Senate approval to the establishment of a 10-member committee and this 8-member committee to help in the bipartisan talks? Maybe you could tell us how crucial are these teams in addressing the current state of affairs?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, our viewers, again, to the viewers of the KUTV. Mm-hmm. I think the most important thing is that you see that the members in BOMAS had agreed that they have to be able to institutionalize the discussion into the Constitution and manage to make it, let's say, legitimate through passing them through the Senate, and I think that was a good step. I've heard people saying, bipartisan is not good, I think, but the question is, what is the option? Because the option was that we're on the street, and I think everything was hurting. Mm-hmm. We should never, ever have gone to the street. Mm-hmm. And this is now showing there's hope that there's dialogue ongoing. And of course, what is important here is that what is the legitimizing the 8-member team mm-hmm. that is going to sit in BOMAS to discuss the matters would mean that whatever is discussed there would actually be brought again, the agendas will be brought again into Parliament and again in the Senate for approval, which means that we are looking at something that looks more of the National Accord, what happened in the 2007, 2008, when Kibaki and Raila Odinga had it. But nevertheless, I'm also foreseeing that so many people are also coming with different memorandums who are also going to present in MOVAs, mm-hmm. and this thing must be expanded to the point is that the agenda being asked for might actually force people to go into what would you call a referendum, because mm-hmm. to be able to bring things like the leader of opposition, the issue to bring the kind of the prime secretary, the one which looks like the prime minister, the one of Musalia Mudavadi, mm-hmm. among other things being asked, may require a referendum. So I'm just hoping mm-hmm. that legitimizing the committee necessarily doesn't mean that you can actually interfere with the basic structure of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And most likely, we might end up with the multi-partisan talks, because I've seen so many people setting a memorandum. And of course, the possibility of now changing the Constitution, you have seen, for example, Operation Lindo, which I'm the leader, had already proposed amendment to the Constitution, which some of them are close to what is being proposed now. We saw that at the time that the issue of the Third Way Alliance had also proposed one, Punguza Mzigo. Ogola had also proposed one. You see the eminent person led by PLO Lumumba has also proposed one. I'm foreseeing a situation whereby the 8-member committee may have to listen to so many petitions, or if you like, memorandum from different Kenyans who might be looking for different things. And I'm sure that they may need really wisdom to be able to go through them so that this BOMAS of Kenya thing mm-hmm. become a real constitutional moment for all Kenyans.
Now, just before we really delve deeper into bipartisan talks, you've mentioned something of interest. Now, you've also said that we should not have gone to the streets in the first place. But now the opposition leader has already threatened again that should this bipartisan talk, the second phase of bipartisan talks fail, then the opposition will be heading back to the streets. Is this conversation really about Kenyans, the interest of Kenyans, really, at this point?
In fact, as far as I'm concerned, constitutional making process is a political process. And unfortunately, that the politicians will put their interests first, but normally the citizens' interests must always be discussed at some point, because politicians represent the citizens. So you can't knock out the citizens' interest completely. The only problem is that as politicians will be negotiating for full loaf of bread, half a loaf of bread, mm-hmm. the citizens might actually only be looking for breadcrumbs. And in fact, that's why we have proposed at Operation Lindo, mm-hmm. why don't we make this a multi-partisan approach so that it is people-led, not politicians-led? Mm-hmm. I know it's difficult because even if it is people-led, they have to come back to Parliament. because the parliament must look at what they are doing. They have to take them to the county assembly. But nevertheless, we would like to have an independent institution like the last one, when we had the one which was headed by Ogola court, where that it was independent, where every Kenyan could present their own petitions, and the committee of experts could be able to look at it. I am hoping that this time there will be no secretariat like the one of BBI, but nevertheless, we shall be able to have a committee of experts sitting somewhere analyzing this information and presenting to Kenyans.
Now, while you're championing for more parties to be included in these talks, and we have two warring factions, this is major factions, this is the opposition and the government, maybe you could just tell us, do you think that them being the conversation being between Kenya Kwanza and the opposition, will it not beneficially work for the betterment of the country and to bring us from now this state of the nation?
No, because you see, Kenya is a multi-party democracy. Kenya is not a bi-party democracy. Therefore, the only thing that can be done in changing the constitution or reviewing the constitution will be a multi-sectoral approach, where we shall have civil society, religious leaders need to be involved. Also, if you like, the public sector, the private sector must be involved. In fact, I'm also looking at where I'm trying to talk to young people to be able to present their memorandum as well. I'm talking to the Youth League within Operation Ugatuzi to prepare, because look at here, Constitution is for prosperity. As the older generation, I think our time is almost up, but the constitution making process should benefit the young people who are in the future. What is their concern? How would they like to see the education sector? How would they want to see employment coming in? Which sectors of the economy will benefit them? How would they like regulation taking place in their education sector? For example, we now talk about the school reopening, and there's a changing structure for funding of education. So we would like to have young people also presenting their memorandum to this forum, so it should be multi-partisan.
Now, the operation, you've also mentioned that the Operation Lindo Gatuzi that you lead is against the establishment of offices like now the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, which you say is not in line with the Constitution. Maybe you could tell us what is the end game for this, in this?
The end game we had was that we went to court because we discovered that the current structure, the current cabinet is unconstitutional. It is illegal because it has created offices which is not seen by the Constitution. So we're only telling the president, the best thing is to withdraw those offices like the one of Musalia Mudavadi, the one of Harriet and Monica, which were appointed advisors to the president in cabinet, which have cabinet level position and do not exist in the Constitution. We're also looking at the issue of the gender balance, which does not work here. Also, people with disability does not work. So these issues is to ensure that the team in Bomas, as we are in court, they have to look for how to ensure that they have to comply with the Constitution. And in fact, for now, they should be removed from office, awaiting the legitimization when they amend the Constitution, because you cannot be able to pass them by backdoor. Remember, in the situation now, if I look at the job description of Musalia Mudavadi, I look at the job description of Gachagua, they're the same. So it's like we're having two deputy presidents. You look at the budget for the deputy president, you look at the budget for Musalia Mudavadi, they're almost equal. So the Constitution does not foresee having two deputy presidents. At the same time, Musalia Mudavadi's position described as a prefect of the cabinet. The Constitution does not foresee any prefect of the cabinet. All the cabinet of ministers needs to report to the president directly without passing through somebody else. So we are just telling the president that structure the executive arm of the government well, because if you look at currently Kenya Kwanza, there's a lot of confusion in the cabinet because there are too many prefects. That's why you see during the cyber security attack, people are responding disconnected. Kindiki says there was no attack, there was attempted attack but failed. Then CS Owalu says we have succeeded to restore the attack. You saw during the airport, the blackout in the airport, someone says, oh, it was like Turkana. So, those confusion shows that the government it's time to run as a government. They can't because they are wrongly constituted. The fathers of the constitution realize that the government must be streamlined, and therefore the structure of the executive arm of the government must be streamlined, rather than having too many reporting structures that brings a lot of confusion.
Mm-hmm. Now, Prof, while we are still talking about these bipartisan talks, this is the second phase. The first one failed. Now, what key factors would you say that should be addressed in this second one now to ensure that matters are being addressed differently and we are having a more productive outcome?
Actually, even your question is interesting, but we should even look at it deeply. All of these post-election negotiations began in 1992 between Raila Odinga and Moi. We also had the one between Kibaki and Raila Odinga. We had the one between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. Now we are having one between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. We should be asking ourselves, what are we getting wrong that after every election we should go back to negotiations? So even as look at the second phase of this Bomas talks, we also have to know that this is not the first phase of talks. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do is that how can we bring everyone who is actually key in this negotiation at the epicenter of this discussion, so that we involve everybody rather than just involve some people, so that in the end we don't have to go back to the whole issue of bipartisan talks. I'm sure one day when you become president, you don't want to win an election and then again somebody goes to court and somebody goes to the streets and you have to negotiate with them. You have to govern and rule, so that Kenyans know that once we go for an election, we need to start having delivery, not post-election negotiations.
All right. Before we let you go, Prof, I would want you to maybe weigh in on this. The National Dialogue Committee is now set to sign a framework agreement tomorrow after this now Senate approval of this committee. From your perspective now as a government expert, what would you say should be the primary objectives of this agreement?
Of course, to see now what is happening is that there are so many people coming, the government side, which is Kenya Kwanza, are coming with their demands, Azimio is coming with their demands. They have to agree what are the issues that should be tabled. And they have to agree on how can they reach an agreement. Will it be a consensus thing? Will it be a mediator? Because if you have two sides competing, if they disagree, what happens? Even if you vote, the two sides will be voting and the vote is equal. That's why I was telling you that even we need to have a multi-partisan. How much room can they open now? Me, I'm asking them, they should sign this framework and agree for opening up of other stakeholders so that everyone should come to the table. Mm-hmm. And then they should come with the issue that should they disagree, where do we get redress? And then thirdly, where is the scope of their work? Can they go beyond the mandate that they have been given? And what is their mandate? So there are many issues there, but the issue is about scope. The issue is about timelines, because I'm sure the nation is waiting to know when will we stop the talks and when will work begin. And Kenya, I'm sure also the President, William Ruto, is concerned that when will I now start working and stop these things of negotiations? Because now Ichungwa is held up Bomas. Of course, you know, Azimio, they are not in government, so they can sit in Bomas as long as they want. But the Kenya people need to come back to work. So you see those challenges happening. So timeline, terms and conditions, in case of disagreement, where do we go? And of course, the scope of the work should be agreed. I think those are key. And then what can be done within the Constitution, because the Constitution must give you a rule on what can you do and what can you not do. Mm-hmm. Because the Constitution is very clear on things that cannot be touched until you go to the people, because the prayer of the Constitution said, we the people of Kenya. So the sovereignty belongs to the people of Kenya. So is there something else they can do from Parliament that cannot be done if they don't go to the people? So I'm sure those are the things we are expecting tomorrow when they sign this framework. Of course, also the issue on the collapse of talks, because we have seen this happen in many talks. How can they deal with the issue when people are hardliners? How can they deal with people who are hardliners? Some people not attending the meeting, some of them coming late. So there'll be a lot of tactics we are hearing. And of course, how can they shield these talks from all the outside talks, which is poisoning the talk? Like you had when Gachaga went and made statements going nowhere. then the committee went and stated clearly that, let me tell you, Mr. Gachagua, President William Ruto and Raila has agreed, we are moving on, we don't care what you're talking about. So how can they shield again the talk from the outside interference from people who might not mean well for it?
All right, Prof, I guess that now we will wait and see tomorrow. That is Professor Fred Ogola. Prof, thank you so much for making time for us tonight. Prof, I think we will let you go. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. You're taking another short break.